Welcome to LEAPCAST. I'm your host, Dr. George James. LEAP stands for Leaders, Entertainers, Athletes, and Performers. And I'm on a journey to connect with high achievers and highlight their unexamined human moments. Tune in to learn how these high-achieving LEAP individuals were able to reach their greatest potential, face their most difficult challenges, and embrace the human moments that helped them along the way. If you want to get the episode highlights directly in your email, then head to theleapcast.com right now to subscribe. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to LEAPCAST. I'm your host, Dr. George James. And as you know, I bring leaders, entertainers, athletes, and performers. And today I get to bring another great friend, Mr. Lamar Tyler, who I've known for a long time. And he has done incredible work from just starting off conversations with people, being one of the first pioneers with video and documentaries, to just really helping people to be entrepreneurs and business leaders. So Lamar, thanks for joining me today.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited. Looking forward to this day. Excited to be here.
Good. I'm excited to have you on. So one of the ways I like to start is something called your LEAP story. And really what that is kind of like learning more about you before you became what people know, like the early parts, maybe even from growing up. So if you could just share a little bit about your background, a little bit about your story, that'd be awesome.
Sure. I grew up in the DC area, right? The youngest of three boys with a single mom. In early years, right, was always focused on what I wanted to do, just didn't know how to get there.
Okay.
And I think even now that's why I'm so passionate about education, right? Educating others and giving them a shortcut, because it is a shortcut to success, and it's getting around other people that have already been on that path. So for me, always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, just didn't know other entrepreneurs, didn't have, necessarily entrepreneurs in my families to learn from. So I started an early career in IT, went that route, right? I went to Morgan State University, right? HBCU in Baltimore for 2 years.
Nice.
2 years in, check this out, 2 years in, I already knew what I want to do. I said, I'm going to go, do computers until I can figure out the entrepreneurship thing. But 2 years in, I'd only taken one computer class. And I'm impatient.
Computers, but I only take one class.
Hey, I'm just like, man, enough of this history and this math and this science. Like, let's get to them computers. And,
right.
It's funny because I think when you're younger, you don't really know who you are. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. But as you get older, you look back, you be like, I've been that dude. You know what I mean? So I'm impatient. Exactly. I'm impatient in a lot of ways now, especially towards my goals and my ambition. And I realized, like, in college, that's what it was. So 2 years in, I was taking all the classes, and I'm like, if I'm here for computers, how come I just can't take the computer classes right off the jump?
Yeah, you're right.
And one summer I was at home and I saw a commercial. It said 6 months. You can come to Computer Learning Center and have a career in computers. And I said, I'm out. So I tell people I went pro. I went pro to computers.
I am not eligible for the draft.
Right, exactly. Right. Went pro to computers, got a job, and transitioned into the workforce and, loved it, man, made a career out of it until, like I said, I finally got a grasp on what entrepreneurship was, how to do it, a lot of failure that led to eventually a lot of success by being consistent.
Wow. Yeah, I really appreciate that. And shout out to the folks out there who want to go pro, but don't know how to. And it's not always something that we're talking about. I grew up where education was very important, and I went all the way through, did a whole bunch, and always doing more. And so there is room for those people. But there are some people who want to go pro and without having to take all the other classes. And I think that's okay if that's your path. So, shout out to those people. I'm really curious. Did you say one of three?
Yeah, I'm the youngest of three boys.
Youngest of three boys. And I'm curious about, like, what did you see in your brothers that either helped you or defined you as you were in this journey?
I think by being the youngest, I got to learn a lot without doing. You know what I mean? So I saw mistakes they made. I said, I don't want to make them mistakes. I saw things that they did well and did good, right? Where I said, hey, you know what? I can do that. My middle brother got married young. I think he got married like his early 20s. So I was able to see, like, hey, you know what? Him and his wife, even though they eventually, led divorce later on, but like at the time, I was like, him and his wife able to build something together, and able to build it at a much faster rate than if he was just like, solo guy out here alone, doing his thing, right? And they they raising a young family. So I got to see some different aspects of that. That a lot of times in our community, we may not get to see like up close like that, because normally, as people trying to get married younger, and I'm talking about early 20s, not like teens or anything like that. But even in early 20s, I think a lot of times in our community, people looking at you like, you sure?
Right.
It's too. But every other community, that's like the age. But in our community, we like, you might want to hold off to you about 35, 45 when you make some of these same mistakes.
I mean, it's interesting. One of my mentors, a white guy who I've had on the podcast before, he talks about he was married and he was like still in college, like
exactly,
like he was like 20, 21, like getting married.
And I used to talk about that all the time from a cultural perspective. If a guy or a girl, in our community, 21 years old, comes home, maybe junior year in college, right, and say, hey, I found a perfect one, I'm getting married. Everybody in your family gonna look at you like you crazy,
right?
So
it's like, let me see this person. We need to give the whole test to everybody.
Exactly. What they trying to get out of you? Right. Somebody pregnant. They go, right, all kinds.
It's always something.
There's got to be something.
So you realize that, or I guess you learned that from just looking at your middle brother and other brothers, and so you were able to navigate some things or understand some things that could be helpful along the way.
Yeah, definitely so. And like I said, now that didn't stop me from, living a perfect life or anything like that. But, success leaves clues and life leaves clues. So I think a lot of times if we look at the people around us, and I hear people often talk about how they have to have a mentor, they need somebody and all these other people to learn certain things. You can learn a lot just by your direct environment. The question is whether we pick up those lessons, and use them, because they can, even if they're negative lessons, they can be used as cautionary tales that we can kind of use to shift our life and balance some things out. So for me, it just was really, looking and seeing, okay, here's some things I do want to do, here's some things I don't want to do, and then trying to move beyond, those levels to try to, build the life that I wanted.
I think that's so profound, right? Like there's stuff that's like in your face, right in front of you, but do you decide to take that in? Do you learn from those the things that are in your environment, in your household, in your neighborhood? And I think sometimes we just bypass that.
We do. And I think that leads to a cycle of continually making the same mistakes that our families make, right? And that everybody in the community makes around us, when, again, we can use it as a cautionary tale to say, well, if people are doing this and that leads to this, then if I don't want that end outcome, then I want to go a different route.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So you went pro, you got into computers. What was the next move after that?
So I got into computers, right? I was a career contractor. So what that means for people listening is I never took a permanent W-2, right? I like I was living wild out here. I was living wild. I can see your face right now. I was living
no W-2?
Right. So I was contract only. This was late 90s, early 2000s. There was a huge demand for IT professionals at the time. There's always demand, but it's a huge demand back then. So that means pretty much that gave me the ability to renegotiate my salary every 3 to 6 months.
Oh, you really did go pro.
oh yeah, I was out here living. By the time most of my friends had graduated college, I had a new construction townhome and 2 cars.
Okay.
Because I knew how to navigate the system. And like I said, I would work somewhere and they say, hey, we want to hire you. I'd say, thank you, but no thank you. It's been amazing. And, I need to find my next contract. And all of that was going well until I met Ronnie, my wife, because Ronnie is the exact opposite. Ronnie, while at this point, when I met Ronnie, I probably had worked maybe 25 plus different places, 3 to 6 month contracts. I wouldn't even take a year-long contract. So 3 to 6 months at the top, just kind of moving, bouncing place to place, but always being consistent. But Ronnie had only worked one job from college. Ronnie is the opposite. Ronnie, she did not go pro. She got her bachelor's and got her master's, right?
She went to G League.
Right? Then she got a full-time job with IBM and, just had worked at one job, nowhere else. Like all she knew was that one company when we met. So she said, I don't understand what you mean. Like you only work somewhere 3 to 6 months. I said, I work 3 to 6 months. When a contract up, I find something else. So what do you mean you find something? Like, what if there's nothing else to find? It's always something to find. I got confidence in myself. I got a good skill set. I got connections out here in the streets. So
right.
What I would do, I told her if there wasn't something else at my rate, I just would take a job with a lower rate, but it was temporary anyway. I might do a 30-day job at a lower rate. Then within that 30 days, I get something else. I had a whole system around it, but she
sure
didn't
did.
care. So when we got engaged, I went and, got a W-2 position.
Wow.
Yeah, hated that, left that, and then got another one. Ended up working at Fox 5, the TV station in DC, and then ran their IT department until I became a full-time entrepreneur.
Wow. I mean, there's a couple of things with that. One, what it means to connect with someone who has a different experience and how that might shift you, how that might make you do something that you really haven't done, sometimes for the better, right? Sometimes this is a new experience, but like you did not have a W-2 until you met your wife, right? And how that, and I know for a lot of people out there, what that means is security, right?
Exactly.
You had a system and you was making money, but it wasn't secure.
Exactly. At
And
least
for
not to her. It was secure to
right,
me, but
right,
not
right,
to
like that's right.
Ronnie.
You had
Not
another
to miss
job,
one job. She's waiting
right,
for a gold watch. She's waiting for a gold watch
right.
and some. And I don't know what else she's waiting at her 50-year mark. But yeah, it was not secure to her. But one of the things she often says is that she thanks me for being patient with her.
Okay.
And her seeing like the whole vision of what I was talking about and what I was trying to do and all those different things like that. But yeah, it was, for me, it was knowing that, okay, I understand, because like I say, we're different, two totally different personality types. So knowing that she needs, like you said, security, she needs like a stable environment. I'm going to, because I want to, build a life with her together. I'm a, move differently so that she can be safe and secure
Yeah.
going forward.
Which once again, the things that we might do for love, right, for our partners, and both ways, because I know the full story, right, like where you were willing to do something to take a W-2 to have that security, which helped for her, right, but then at the same time, everything you're saying, you've always been an entrepreneur. Like that's been you from the jump. It's in your DNA. So it wasn't going to be too much longer before you find your way back. And so, one, I want to stop at the Fox job, because I think that makes sense, or the TV gig, because like I know that people in the TV world, because we like even someone that I've worked with, someone who's like an executive producer at at a morning show, like they're like each other because you were probably together back in that day.
Probably
So
so.
so you probably made some really good contacts, or made some good relationships when people were still coming up in their career.
Yeah, and it was a good time for me because even that job and position, it was a very casual environment. It was casual and fast paced. So all the things that I liked about contracting, I had the ability to do it inside of that W-2 position. So it
Nice.
kind of gave me the best of both worlds until I could get free, right? I was looking for freedom at all breaks, but until I get free, it still kind of gave me the best of both worlds to navigate within, until Ronnie got kind of comfortable with the thought around, hey, you know what, we could do our own thing and it could be something different out here for us.
Wow. So how did you? Well, when you said, all right, you had the W-2, then Ronnie got more comfortable with you, kind of being out there like that. What was that first venture or thing that you started to do?
Yeah, so for us, it was our blog, blackandmarriedwithkids.com, that we created to be promote positive images of marriage and parenting in the Black community. And when we did it, like that was when we got married. I was doing like some other entrepreneurial things and trying different things out, but that actually stemmed from the position in the job as well. Because what happened is I was pitching all of these jobs, initiatives. I was pitching all these ideas, initiatives to my job, but they
Okay.
kept shutting them down because they just didn't have big enough vision for it.
To the TV job?
To the TV station, yeah, because
Okay.
at the time they were doing they were moving into the internet heavy and a lot of stuff.
Okay.
And we had, for example, created probably the first like mainstream news site catered directly towards African American community called My Voice DC.
Nice.
And out of I think it was like 22 owned and operated television stations, all of them had maybe 8 different community focused websites. We were number 4 in the whole country, right? And we did this with it was like all just voluntary. Like, I built the original website. I had a good friend, Micheline, in the news department, that had all the connects with all the radio hosts who were creating content. All the writers in the city were writing content for us. All the celebrities that would come into the station would do, video and sing drops for us and all. I mean, it was amazing. We built.
Nice.
But I couldn't see the vision.
Oh, wow.
And even though the data was right there, they couldn't see the vision. And then what would happen is, as I had other ideas, they just had a very corporate mentality. And what a corporate mentality looks like for everybody listening is I would say, hey, we could do this great idea and it'd be simple to execute X, Y, and Z. They would say, well, no, we don't have the bandwidth for that. And I said, what do you mean bandwidth? And no, we need, we don't need like at least, 8 people to do that. And we need a manager and we need this person, that person. I'm thinking, nah, it's probably somebody at home doing the same thing from their living room that does not have any of this brand recognition so we could do it. Well, how are we going to get people to come in? Well, people will come in because we are like the leading news station in DC, right? People want exposure. So like everything in their mind was saying and creating reasons why we can't do these things. When what I found out is that somebody with a mindset towards positivity and growth, their mind thinks the total opposite of thinking, how can we do these things?
Yes.
And eventually I got tired of pitching those ideas. So I went home and told Ronnie, I'm no longer giving him my $1 million ideas. I'm gonna create my own $1 million business.
That's right.
And that's when the birth of kind of Black and Married with Kids started. We said, all right, what are we going to create? It's something we're passionate about. It got to be something that 4 or 5 years from now, we won't, be burnt out from doing it, or it's got to be something that people are interested in, because we could write and create stuff. We don't want to write and create stuff that nobody's paying attention to. And that very first thing was Black and Married with Kids.
And I think, everything that you're saying, right? It's just great that the thought of, so many people out here have $1 million ideas, and you're trying, you're throwing it against the wall, you're trying to pitch it, and people either don't see it, or to shout out to one of the books that you wrote, there are gatekeepers out here, right? And trying to stop you from what you believe and what you see. And what happens for a lot of people, we leave discouraged, and we'll tell ourselves we're not going to do it, or we can't do it, or we fail, or we suck, or whatever. And we give up all the rest of the multiple $1 million ideas that we have. So I think it's great that you and Ronnie was like, all right, we don't need them. We're going to find another way. And, Black and Married with Kids was awesome. And I'm wondering, like, how did you start to grow that? Because, people now talk about like, oh, they want an audience or they want to build. And I know that's been, you both were great and are great with being able to captivate people. So how did you start that and know that you could do that?
Well, it just was knowing that there was a void there, because we were part of a demographic that was being ignored. So we knew it was a void. We knew, couples like us didn't really have a voice, and we weren't portrayed. And if we were portrayed, we weren't portrayed in a positive light. So I tell people a lot of times, like they know where the gaps are, because a lot of times they're living in those gaps, especially if you're a person of color, especially you're somebody that may be in a marginalized community. So how can you exploit that to your own good, to the growth and good of your community? And for us, it was launching a website, creating content around promoting positive images of Black couples. And as we did, couples that have been married 20, 30 years said, hey, you know what? I never see myself represented. Thank you. And then we had singles, which we didn't expect. Singles came and said, hey, my parents have been married for 40, 50 years. So I know this exists, but I never see it in the TV, in the newspapers, in the press. Or they said, hey, you know what? I want what you guys are talking about one day. Nice. And I want to prepare myself for it. So I'm reading your articles. I want to come to your events and just learn more about it. So it really just took off quickly. And it took off so quickly because the need was there. So one of the things I focus on around entrepreneurship all the time is if you can build, whether it's a business, a nonprofit initiative, no matter what it is, where there's already like massive need, you'll be so far ahead of the game, instead of trying to go somewhere where there is no need and you trying to drum up the need and drum up the education and make people care. We were in a lane where people already cared, but nobody cared about them.
Yeah. And, just knowing that hundreds of thousands of people would gravitate to the website, to the social media, and just to hear what you all had to say, or articles were coming out. And like you said, it touched a nerve, right? It touched the spot where people, sometimes what people call it even a pain point, right? Where, representation wasn't there, or like just information, or how do I navigate the space? Because you both did and continue to do a great job of really not only talking about relationships, not only talking about parenting, but also, I know one of the places that you both shared a lot about it was blended families. And I don't think anybody was really talking about that. Like, how do we navigate all of that?
Yeah. And that was it. I think once we launched, what we just viewed as, hey, it's a void around couples, we found out was so much deeper than that. And there were, that was like the immediate conversation, but then were a lot of deeper segmented conversations around the fact that, hey, specifically what we deal with is issues around communication. or specifically what we're dealing with is our step family, blended family issues, or, you know, specifically what we're dealing with is trying to overcome this infidelity or cheating that occurred. And then as we got deeper into the conversation, we were able to drill down and work with different experts like yourself, right? To try to find content, people, solutions, counselors, therapists, ministries, no matter, you know, all the people out here doing the work and connecting with the people. Because a lot of times we also found that the people that were doing the work and most equipped to actually help the communities couldn't do a job to actually market themselves to get in front of the same people they needed to help.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I appreciated, you know, in the multiple times our worlds intersected, that we were able to work together and to produce, you know, from articles to series to even, I think one of the times it was a friend of mine who had a pilot, that episode that they had done, they had shot in 6 episodes. They did the first season, and we were able to write and talk about that. And so there's so many ways that between media and meeting people and families and relationships, and like you said, creating a lane for even experts and ministries and folks out there who might not have the audience, and then also adding more content and more expertise that would come to your site and to the services that you both offered. It was just great. And I guess, when did you start to do videos and DVDs? Because that was part of what I was looking up, right? I went back into the trenches. I found one of these.
Hey,
right?
Hey, put that away. We won't let people we won't let people watch that no more. It's outlawed. That's outlawed in 38 of the continent of the United States.
I went back into the well, and I found some stuff. So when did you all start to do videos or even that type of stuff?
Yeah. So what was interesting is that a lot of people say, "Oh, you know, you worked at a TV station, you learned how to do video there," which I did not, because I ran the IT department.
Right.
So what happened was we launched our website December 2007. In probably late, like maybe a year later, like late 2008, I met a guy through the website I mentioned earlier, right? We had a Black focused website, My Voice DC. So my friend Micheline brings this guy, Jenks Morton. So Jenks has a movie called What Black Men Think. You know, we bring him in, interview him, we end up being friends. And I go back to Ronnie, and I got the idea. I said, like, you know, we should do a documentary around marriage in the Black community, how we view it inside of the community, how other people outside of the Black community view it, XYZ. But I said, but who gonna do this thing? Because I ain't got money to pay Jenks to do this. And, you know, it's just like a conversation, like how do we actually equip to get it done?
Yeah.
And I'm not like let's do something 5-10 years down the road. That just ain't me. So I'm like, how can we get this done now? And Ronnie said, I think you can do it. And we had just actually bought, when I met Jenks, I actually bought his old video camera, because at the time, this is around time when HD was just coming out. So he had bought a new HD camera, gave me his old SD camera, and I was going to just do some things on the website with it. But Ronnie said, I think you can do it. So for about 2 weeks after work every day, I would get off at the TV station and just go out and interview couples. And we had, you know, a handful of couples. I would go out and I would just, you know, have my camera. I bought some little, you know, cheap lights off the internet. Some terrible microphones. Microphones are trash. I bought some terrible microphones off the internet.
But that didn't stop you though, right? Like, you're like, we still gonna get this done.
We don't reference that film anymore. That thing is rough. It's a little rough around the edges. But we got it done. That's the main thing. We got it done. So it cost me about, you know, $5,000 in total, right? Between a little bit of equipment I bought. I had to go get a new laptop from Best Buy. I got some editing software from Best Buy, which I found a box of it the other day. I was bringing to my office and showing my video team. They're like, what is this? Like, they got it young. They're like, what is this you're showing us? But we did all of that. In our very first screening, Northwest DC, 166 seats, and sold out.
Wow.
And I totally could not believe that people came out to see our film. There were no celebrities in it. There were no action scenes. It was just a film with Black couples talking about marriage and their relationships. But they came out and they loved it. And what happened is, just by getting it done, we became then officially filmmakers, and then we became a lot better because we saw the mistakes that we made through the process. Wow. So, you know, we made that little $5,000 back, made a little bit extra over top of that, reinvested, got, you know, 2 HD cameras, got better lights. And then, you know, this time we rented out a place and, you know, interviewed all the couples in the next place. We did You Saved Me next year in 2010. And then we got better, right? But telling the story. And then every year for that first 5 years, we released a different movie. So we end up doing 7 total, but 5 out of the first 5 years. And like I said, every time, just by doing I want to emphasize to everybody listening, by doing the work, right? Too many people get caught up in the idea.
Yeah.
And they got the idea and they trying to flesh out the whole idea. And they're at like, they're at like the starting line trying to figure out like what the finish line looked like 100 yards down the track. And the thing is, it's foggy all in between. So they like, I cannot move until I see like that finish line and get going. But that ain't how life works. You literally have to get going, and you're gonna get 5-10 yards, and then see the next 5-10 yards, and then you're gonna get down there, and then have to pivot left or right. But you're going like the only way you see the path is by actually getting moving. And for us, that was it. Like I said, we got better at video, we got better at audio, we got better at directing, we got better at finding the right couples to even go into it, and then telling their stories. And this is where we really got better at actually sales and marketing, because then we had to figure out, all right, how do we make a movie that the audience already wants? So that even though nobody's in it, that they know they're already.
Oh, no.
So during the process, we got a lot better with marketing between making movies. In the first 5 years, we made 5 films back to back to back. So what that looked like is we create a movie and then we do our own tour, right? 7 to 10 cities where we hop around. And in those cities, do multiple, sometime day, or we've done 2-week runs of our films, like it was a big budget production across multiple theaters. We've done 300, 400, or 500 people in the theater and done multiple showings in one day, and really building a community again around films that were mostly made up of couples that nobody knew. But the issues, again, right? Like you talked about, the pain points were there, the problem was there, and they said, hey, this film has a solution, or some people that have been through what I've gone through, what I'm going through right now, and they came through it, and I want to see how they actually did it. So we just learned a lot over the process of just actually going out and making it happen.
I just think it's incredible. Like you said, people think, and I love it because I've been there where I would have this vision and idea for my future, and it would seem like it's so far. But then as I made steps and got closer, it was fuzzy, but it got clearer as I moved forward. And a lot of people just expect it to just be rolled out, like it's just all in front of you. But you always got to do the work. And it's not until you do the work. And for me, what happened was that as I got closer to what I thought was like the end point, I realized that's just a checkpoint. That's not even the end of the goal. So to hear how you learned more and more by just doing the work, and you got better at it, and you reinvested and got better and reinvested, and all at the same time, you were building a community, you're building a network, you're building followers, and I just know like how many lives that you impacted throughout that time, which had to have been tremendous amount of testimonials you all received.
Yeah, we got a lot of testimonials, a lot of goodwill back, a lot of connections and relationships, and we still meet people. I was doing a tour of our building recently to some new clients, and I was showing somebody one of our movie posters, and the guy's like, that's the movie. That's how I found you. Like that movie, I got that movie at home. I got it on the DVD still, right? So it was, but I think again, one of the things people don't realize is that when you do right by people and you do good, like that's a reciprocal measure that you get paid back for all the time, forever. Yeah. Right. So even though like that first film was like 2009, so it's been a long time since it dropped, but we still will bump into somebody and they'll say like, hey, I was in DC that time, or in South Side of Chicago when y'all came, and this is how it did, or this is the impact that it made on my family and my relationship. Or even professionals telling us that, hey, watching your movies or having my couples watch your movies allowed me to have conversations I normally couldn't have, allowed us to, break, into a husband's heart, where normally he wouldn't, sit there and say anything, but we could watch the movie and then figure out some things beyond that. So I think that definitely was it.
And and just to add on to the professional part, I saw your videos in some of my colleagues, like their bookshelves, right? My white colleagues would have copies of the DVDs that they would use or give out to, I think, some of their black clients, right?
Never knew it.
Right. So there are ways that like, right, that's how I got this extra copy, right? That's how I got this one, right? Because like it was in one of my colleagues, and I think they would do seminars and workshops, white colleagues, but they had a connection to, black black couples or black churches, and I think that was one of the tools they used to kind of bridge the gap. So talk about this goodwill and the work that kind of kept going in so many ways. But I know that wasn't your only idea, right? I know that you've had multiple ideas, and probably while you're doing the website, doing the blog, doing the movies, you're probably thinking about a whole bunch of other ideas, and you pivoted. Both of you pivoted, and I guess tell me about, how did you navigate that pivot? How did you know it was time to make the pivot? How did you know that was the right pivot for you and the business?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I want to tie into what you said. We had like a lot of ideas over the years, and we tried a lot of other things. That sometimes worked marginally, and it sometimes just flat out didn't work. So I think a lot of times people from the outside look and say, "Well, it was easy for you because you've done all these things and they're successful." I tell people we're more successful than most people because we try more than most people, and we fail more than most people, right? Mm. But most of the time when you fail, like people don't really see that, or even they see it, they forget it, right? They just remember like kind of like the big triumph type of things. So as we grew Black and Married with Kids, what happened is that, like I said, we learned how to sell and market, and people would come to the theater and say, hold up, it's 500 people in here. Like, how did y'all make this happen? Hold up, like y'all are making money. Hold up, you went from, your bedroom where we first saw you start to now you're in the office. Now you got an editor. Now you got, at one point we had like 40 plus freelance writers writing for the site.
Nice.
And business owners would begin to come to us and say, hey, teach me how to do what you're doing in your business. Teach me how to leverage online. Teach me how to leverage social media. So that's what we did. And we began to eventually make a transition over to the brand. That's our primary focus now, traffic, sales, and profit, where we help, entrepreneurs, do that, right? Drive more traffic, which is leads, convert more sales, and then grow more profit in their businesses.
And what started to make you feel like, hey, this is what we've been doing all along? Because like you said, like that's been there from the beginning, from day one. It just came in lots of different products or services, and now you're focusing on that, or been focusing on that. What allowed you both to have that epiphany?
Yeah, I think for me individually, because Ronnie always say I dragged her into entrepreneurship. She was like, I didn't. She's like, I should make it very clear, I did not grow up wanting to be an entrepreneur like Lamar, right? So she said I dragged her. So for me, where like the marriage work that we did, we loved it. We both loved it. We enjoyed it, like for that season. But the entrepreneurship work we do now, I feel like is my straight undivided purpose, right? Yeah. It's like that. The other part was close to it, but like this is it. Like it's nothing else that I should be doing on this earth at this time other than what we're doing. And I think it's like a few lessons in there, right? It's, for one, like the original work we did was a season. It wasn't meant to be forever, right? It was a season that led to this new season that we're in, where if we don't do the first part, we never get to where we are now, because a lot of credibility of what we've done now was built on the first part of what we did before that.
100%.
So just recognizing and appreciating every phase of life that you're in, and not wanting to always shortcut to the let me just get to the good part at the end, right? But kind of being able to work through that part. Let me just get
to the check.
Exactly, because now like so many of the relationships we have are built over all that work we did, years ago, right? With the films, with the movies, with the couples, and all type of things like that. So that was like a big piece of it. But like I said, really just like getting more in tune with, all right, like what are we really supposed to be doing? Like I said, you oftentimes don't find out till you get in the thick of it, and as you get moving through it.
That makes so much sense, right? Like that, if we allow the process to unfold, right? When the people say trust the process, it's kind of hard, right? This thought of that each thing builds on the next thing, right? And that no matter what, even if on the surface it looks like you failed, you still gain some skills, you still gain some people, some network, some whatever. And then if you double down, it just keeps going and flowing. And it sounds like that's really what you all have been able to do, which I think is just tremendous.
Hey, can I add one more thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because one important part I forgot to mention was that as you're making those transitions and those phases are happening, not being afraid that your thoughts, your decisions, and where you lead yourself may conflict with other people's beliefs of where you should be or what you should be doing. So it's funny because I don't ever really talk about my whole life like we kind of doing here. So this is a great interview. But as I think about it, it was different phases. Like when I left college, that wasn't a popular opinion. I mean, now it's like Zuckerberg
Right.
didn't go,
Right.
like
No,
all this stuff is like new where it's cool not to go to
we
college.
weren't calling you going pro. We're like,
Right,
you flunked
exactly.
out.
That's my own little analogy, right? Like people like, man, like you couldn't make it. I was like, no, actually, my last semester was my best semester. It like was not a popular opinion.
Right.
So because on people, the only thing they could relate it to was like, hey, you must not be doing good. Yeah. Like you said, like, hey, you must be failing. Like I thought you were smart. What happened? So for them, they couldn't even put two and two together that you would voluntarily leave to do something until later on they would, see the fruits of their labor and be like, oh, I guess you did make it. Okay.
You were
right?
Now you're a visionary. Before you were a fool.
Listen, I mean, I was all the way into this is like I probably left college. I left college probably in 96. Probably 2012. We had done Black and Married with Kids. We were starting to transition. We were doing this had to be at least 2015, 2016, because this is when I started to work for entrepreneurs and Travis Sales of Profit. My mother was still like, yeah, you coach these entrepreneurs good. It's like, you don't want to go back to college? I'm like, lady, I'm like a grown man out here with a grown family. I only had a time if I wanted to go back. So
I'm in these streets.
Right. I've been out. I got awards on the wall. Like, you see the things you walk by in the hallway. So, but you have to have some unpopular opinions sometimes.
Yeah.
And know in your heart what's for you, right? Knowing and not listening to what naysayers may say, not listening to what people around, because a lot of times they just can't see the vision. So you may have a calling on your life. You may have a vision that you see, and realizing that your vision is for you. It's your vision. All the time, everybody else may not around you see it. So they might not have saw it when I say, hey, you know what? Yeah, I'm leaving college. And what I appreciated that time was that my grandfather and my mother, neither one of them discouraged me. And that showed me like, wow, like I built up enough equity with them to where I say, hey, I'm doing this because, and I had a plan because I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and I'm going to do this, that. They didn't necessarily like it. They wanted me to stay, but they said, okay. And they believed me, right? So like those bricks, and I tell my kids all the time, like the foundation of trust, just like in a marriage, right? In your relationships with parents, with peers, with colleagues, with business partners, like brick by brick, you got to build it up and it pays off later. So making a decision to leave college, making a decision to leave my job. When I left Fox 5, because people be like, yo, you sure you want to leave? Because you're making good money, right? And we see you on the news every now and then, right? They use you in that commercial that one. Like, that's like big. That's like a big deal to people, right? Like they get to point to you and be like, I know that person on the TV. You're on TV all the time. You know how this is. Yeah. So they would get excited about leaving my corporate job, because it was like a visible position. It wasn't popular with a lot of people, right? And then the same thing, we began to transition away from Black and Married with Kids into Travis Sales of Profit. Again, was not a popular opinion, because in people's minds, they say, oh my goodness, what you're doing is so big. And that's what you should be doing. And he said, no, that's what we should have been doing for that season. And we did what we were supposed to do to help the couples we helped and connect, the specialists with the couples that we connected. And the next part of our story is this, because one of the best things that I've heard probably in the last decade, it was an interview between two people, as a podcast, YouTube interview or something. But the one guy was telling the other guy, what if the first 40 years of your life was just a setup to prepare you for the next 40 years?
Yes.
And when I got that,
woo,
when I got that, because I think a lot of times we put all these self-imposed limitations on ourselves that, hey, by the time I'm 25, I'm going to be this, and I'm going to be a millionaire by the time I'm 30. And we got all these short-term plans, and when they don't work out, a lot of times we start beating ourselves up about things we did wrong, opportunities we didn't take, risks we didn't, jump into, and things like that. But when we really look at it and you start to shift it like that, and you say, well, Troy Cathy that created Chick-fil-A didn't open up Chick-fil-A till he was like 46, 47 years old.
Mm.
So if and it's a long line of names like that, right? If everything, no matter what age you are and you listen to this, everything that led up to you listening to this moment, right, and this podcast or watching this podcast was just to prepare you for the next part of your life, it totally shifts your entire mindset.
Yeah, I love that, right? And because when we have I should have done this, or this should have happened at this age, we then get filled with negativity, we get filled with anxiety, we get filled with worry, instead of positivity, hope, belief, right? Light, right? Being able to vision, even you stop having the ideas. And two things that you said that I really love is that one, you were brave enough when it was unpopular to leave school, to leave the W-2, and to pivot from something that people knew, like associated with you. That takes a lot of internal bravery. And then two, the thing I was thinking about, I remember being in grad school, and while I was in grad school, I actively was going to acting classes, going to auditions in New York and Philly, sometimes DC. And people would ask me like, dude, what are you doing? Like you're getting a graduate degree. Why are you doing all this other stuff? But I knew I wasn't going to go out to like Hollywood, like to live that life completely.
Yeah.
But I knew it was a part of me. And when I look back, those acting classes, those on-camera classes, all that stuff made me so comfortable in front of the camera that in 19 years plus of doing therapy, I've been on TV for 19 plus years in some way or another, right? So this thought of, we don't know how things start to connect, how they blend, how they like add to the next thing. And if I didn't like give myself permission to really try that, who knows like what my comfortability level, or if I would have been doing it. If you and Ronnie didn't give yourself permission to pivot, to say like, yeah, people know us as Black and married with kids and so forth, but that's not the end.
Yeah,
you could have missed it.
And one of the things I'm always pushing on my business clients, and it just is like my process through life in general. If you don't like your life, change it.
Yeah.
And it don't mean always like, hey, like my life sucks and it's bad and it's terrible, but it could be like, hey, you know what? I want more free time. Hey, you know what? I want to go deeper into my career. Hey, like, and I think too many times people sit in situations they're not happy in and spend most of their time not being happy about, like spend most of the time just focusing on the not happy part, focusing on not being happy.
Yes.
You know, wasting time telling everybody how they're not happy, you know, frustrated and not happy instead of actually doing something to change it. And even, you know, with business, I tell my clients all the time, I say, if you don't like the business that you built, it's really your fault. Yeah. Like at any point you can change that. At any point you can bring on help. At any point you can say, I'm not doing this business, I'm doing another business, but really taking back control of your life and moving forward with it.
I love that. So I like to ask, you know, these 4 questions as we get to the end. One is, what are you working on now, or what are the things that like you are excited about in the work that you're doing?
Yeah, so 2 things, right? And we would continue to work we're doing with entrepreneurs, like I said, through our Traffic Sales and Profit brand. We do 2 events per year now, and we've grown from the first event in 2016 to like 47 people to we had over 1,000 for this last event, right? So our goal and our mission is over this next 3 years, we want to build it to 3,500 plus.
Nice.
That we're you know, got coming to Atlanta to the events. We're pouring into them. We had Magic Johnson at the last event. We got Marcus Lemonis at the next one. So, you know, giving them top rated access to education information so that they don't have to do all the stuff I had to do, learning the hard way, taking the pitfalls and growing and going beyond.
I've been meaning to go, but I think this is my time. I need to show up. I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be in the audience.
January. Gotta beat it. And then the other thing is, you know, back into the video lane. We've been pressing harder back into video. So I don't think I've shared this with anybody yet publicly, right? So this is exclusive
okay,
here.
Exclusive. Here we go.
Exclusive, right? But in January, we're going to launch a streaming network focused on Black entrepreneurship and wealth. Nice. So we have already got a couple shows that we've shot in the can. We got another shoot a few weeks out later this month. We got one set for next month. So we're building up the content vault. So we'll put all the movies over there, but then we got some shows that will help people, assist people, have some great conversations that we bring to the forefront of our community, all inside of that app that you'll be able to access via Fire Stick, iOS, Android, on your mobile devices, on your TV, Roku, everywhere that you want great content will be there.
Exclusive. I need my Jamaican horn. That's awesome. Like Black streaming service network, all that amazing content, people coming from all different angles, but at the same and helping people and enriching people and entertaining people, and through a trusted brand like what you and Ronnie have been able to develop. That just sounds awesome. So I'm glad to hear that. January. All right. January. This is going to be out before January, so it will be an exclusive. That's awesome. So the other thing I like to ask people is, who's somebody that you would like to work with, you know, professionally or in any way that you would like to, or partner with or collab with in any way?
Oh, that's a great question. I would, oh man, because I got like a few people I like
It's
to
all right.
think.
Yeah, name a few. It's all right.
Yeah, so I would say, so we brought in, I just mentioned Magic Johnson to our last event. And man, when I talk about, people always talk about thinking big, but it's really about dreaming big.
Yes.
And when I talk about like big dreamers, like that guy is a big dreamer. When you look at the things he's done to, amassing, like I think he said amassed over 150 Starbucks,
Wow.
and then sold them, right? Back to Starbucks. Like people are like, well, how do you do something? You don't even do nothing like that if you can't even dream that big
Yeah.
to do it. Because a lot of people, where their dream is like, hey, I want to own a Starbucks.
Yes.
So like when that's the capacity of your dream, it stops right there. When you get the one Starbucks, you happy, and you walk around and you got your business card. You say, hey y'all, I own a Starbucks
Come to
over
my
there, right?
store.
Right, exactly. But he's a big dreamer, right? So I would love to go deeper with Magic, right, and be able to partner and do some things on that level. Also, who I'm watching, I haven't met him directly, but we're trying to see if we can get him to a conference in the future. Is Byron Allen.
Yeah. I
Who
just saw
now
he made
owns.
another big move with HBCU, like
When is he
football.
not making? Like I haven't even seen that one, right? But it's
I
like
just saw this morning.
it's like every month, every quarter,
Yeah.
he's pulling the trigger. And what's crazy is that most of the United States probably has no idea. Even majority of the Black community probably has no idea. But again, right, the scale and the level of what's being done, I just love it and appreciate it. And that's where I'm like, I'm always trying to push myself to think big. So I just would love to do business with people that are big thinkers like that. Because one of the things I always say is you can't be around people that think that big and think small.
You
It's
can't.
impossible.
Impossible.
It's
I,
impossible.
I love that because I've had those experiences where, one of my good friends who was on the podcast earlier, he's like that. I can't be around him and not feel like, yo, I gotta take my game up. I need to level up like 5 levels where I'm at. And I think I can think pretty big, but like the
Exactly.
expansion is like, oh no, there's more. But that's how people get there to wherever they need to be, wherever spot, lane, path you need to be on, is to think beyond wherever you're thinking. So I love that. And I could totally see, you and Magic doing something. I could see Byron Allen, because that dude is definitely doing it. So here's a bonus question. I I wore my Eagles green for you because I know that you're an Eagles fan, but I'm always curious how you got all hooked up with the Eagles all the way in Philly.
It was easy. I say I'll give you 2 words because I get that question on because I grew up in the DC area. So people like they would think you're either Redskin fan or Cowboys fan because people don't know half of DC is Cowboys fans, which I don't understand.
Yeah.
But that's what you don't understand.
Yeah.
But literally, like you easily go to a Redskin game and be more Cowboy fans than Redskins. But I'm gonna say 2 words and you'll instantly say, "Oh, I get it." Randall Cunningham.
You're right.
I mean, that was it, right? So, as I was young and I started watching football, it was one person I saw that I instantly was attracted to and I became a fan of, and that was Randall Cunningham.
All
And
right.
Randall Cunningham out on that Eagles jersey, and he was the dude, that you would want to go outside and pretend you were him. He'd run, he'd throw, he'd leap over people into the end zone, and that was my guy. Like it's related to NFL and football. That dude was my idol, right? And that's how I became an Eagles fan.
Well, shout out to Randall Cunningham for being that for so many people. And it's interesting. Like even this conversation, I've been thinking about how you and Ronnie and the work that you both have done have been that for people. You have been like the image that you're out there creating a network, creating an audience, filming things that people aspire to and say, yo, I want to be like that. Because as we were talking, I think about the success of the Black Love series and documentary. I feel has to be somewhat connected to some of the work that you all did. And the timing of it came after the seeds that you both planted. So, it's like, now we look at Lamar Jackson, right? And he's killing it, right?
Right.
But Lamar, even, others, Mike Vick, wouldn't be there if it wasn't for Randall. So
Nope,
I,
not at
I
all.
see that as you and Ronnie as the pioneers who did some of that.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Last 2 questions. How would you define mental wellness?
I would define mental wellness as I would tie it in with self awareness too, and being cognizant of what's going on with yourself. knowing where you are at what time, right? Mentally, physically, everything. And then making steps to do something about it. Like that piece too. Cause I find people, I bump people that are aware that certain things are going on, but they just like won't do something about it. Right. Which I kind of go back to my thing before, like if I'm in a spot and it could be, if I'm stressed, like it could be something as minimal as like if I'm stressed and tight, like I got to do something about it to get the stress out, right? Or if I need to talk to somebody, like I got to do something to get, with an expert that can give me strategies to actually use, right, to overcome some of the things. So I just don't sit and go through the same thing over and over, Groundhog Day, over and over again, and then live life out in a way where I'm not fully living it out to the fullest and to my full potential. So when I think about that, that's what I kind of, come back to those things is self-awareness, knowing as much as you can about yourself, how you react to certain things. What are some things that are triggers you to do this or that, to feel anxiety, to feel worried, to feel excited, to feel frustrated, all of it. And then like what happens when those things come into play to you, and then what actions can you take to kind of monitor yourself, help yourself, or anything along that line.
I love it. So many people struggle with the self-awareness. Last question: what mental wellness advice would you give to your younger self, as early as yesterday or any time in the past?
Yeah, I had a good friend that was a therapist one time. Oh, he was a therapist one time. He's a therapist. But one time he told me, he's like, hold on, man, I'm still a therapist now. But he had done
Give my credits.
Right. He had done some business assessments on my wife and I and our team. And it was their assessment on us and everything like that. So I'm always interested in anything business I'm interested in. So as he sat down with it, he gave us the assessments and said, hey, you know what? This is good. You come across very strong in all these areas. The team loves you. They look up to you, all these things. But he said, you need an outlet and a release. Cause he said like, as you're taking on the stress of family, you're taking on the stress of home, you're taking on, everything going on inside the business, you don't have an actual outlet yourself. And to me, that was kind of like, wow, which was true. It's totally true. But it was kind of like, wow. And since that day, that's been something that kind of rung in my head. So I tried to find things then, and I still try to find things now that can serve as that outlet. And I think for guys, it gets harder as you get older, because like the outlet we was young, right? When I was young, used to be like sports and things like that. Like now I got older.
Right.
Even though I find like, one time I found this men's basketball league, right by the house. I'm calling people up. This dude back hurt, this dude knee hurt. Like I couldn't even get 5 guys that ain't feeble, right? Like out onto the court to do something with it. So
the random dude that tries to do too much and gets hurt.
Yeah, that happened too. Because that really happened too, right? So it's easy. And then I got friends I used to get up with, but as our kids get older and they just having kids. Yeah. It's like, man, I got, all my kids high school and above, you got like a 2-3-year-old. You can't come out and do nothing.
Right. Man, I'll catch you in 5 years.
Yeah, right. You know what I'm saying? Like you looking for babysitters out here. Right. I'm leaving kids home. Right. It's just different life. So just it took a while to try to find things that sometimes you've got to find things you can do independently of others, so that like when you need a release, you can just get the release, and it's not dependent on you getting a group of people together or things that may be harder depending on what's going on in life with you and everybody else around you.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense, and I think a lot of people struggle, a lot of guys struggle, and there aren't often communities where they can feel like this is where they can release, whether physically, emotionally, or that. Lamar, it's always, a pleasure to talk with you and to share with you. I'm so appreciative of all that you shared today. I love what you're doing with Traffic Sales and Profit. I love what the network that you and Ronnie have built up, and the impact in the community at large that you both have. So I really appreciate you being here. And so before we leave, is there any last things you want to say before we end?
No, I mean, just thanks for having me on, man. I've been, like I said, definitely looking forward to this. And, for everybody listening, again, you're not, when you stand at that starting line, you're not going to see what's down the pipe 100 yards down. So you get started. Like that is the main thing, no matter whether it's life, whether it's school, whether it's business, you got to get started. You got to get moving. And then as you begin to move, you'll start to see the path clear.
That's awesome. And come through to the Traffic Sales and Profit conference, or retreat. I don't know which one you use, but come through to the event. It sounds like it's definitely a much needed boost of just how to get direction in what you're trying to do. So I got to find my way there.
Hey, it'll give them everything they need. Our next one is January 26th through the 28th here in Atlanta. And for more information on that and everything else, they can just visit www.trafficsalesandprofit.com.
Nice. Always a pleasure.
All right, thank you.
Wow, what an incredible ride we just went on with another great member of the LEAPCAST community. I appreciate you listening and hope you got some tangible value from the episode. Please let us know what you think by leaving a comment, rating, and review. As always, please don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. This is Dr. George James, and I'll see you next time.